Throughout my life, my family expected me to excel at pretty much everything because they believed in me. But the rest of the world didn't exactly see it this way. I'm a girl who doesn't fit the stereotype of a tech nerd, whatever that means. I'm 22 years old, in my last semester of college, presenting my research at the NASA Space Grant Symposium. I was recruited for the NASA program after finishing a rigorous Wall Street internship. As I stood before the directors, mostly white men, and presented my findings on the importance of diversity in STEM, I held back my tears. Black and brown students didn't think they were NASA material, and that's why they didn't apply for internships there. Native Americans didn't apply. Women did not apply. They didn't think that they were good enough because they weren't targeted in NASA's marketing. They also didn't want to be alone, and neither did I. I was excited to serve as an intern lead at the NASA Space Grant program, but my enthusiasm grew dim as I realized I'd blown in grad school. The entire experience was eye-opening. I interviewed two of the directors of the program, both women. Chandra, one of the directors, shared with me her story of being a Black female scientist and the loneliness that she faced for decades in the field. She was a trailblazer and quickly became one of my closest mentors. I was getting ready to start grad school in the tech field, and it dawned on me that I too was going to be very alone. As the days passed and my research for the Space Grant program got deeper, I second-guessed going to grad school altogether. Mona, my graduate advisor, told me that I could count on one hand how many Latinos had been through this grad program in the past 5 years, and I was the first Latina. She spent most of her career at IBM and knew what it was like to be the only Latina in the room. She told me that I needed to do this. I knew what I signed up for. I was warned. I was now 23 years old in my second semester of grad school and had just finished the most academically rigorous semester of my life. I knew that I was at a slight disadvantage going into the program. Out of 90 students, I was one of 10 Americans and the only Latina. Most of my peers were engineers from Southeast Asia. They had the upper hand. They had all of the engineering skills. This was a top program in the country, and I was reminded of this every single day. One day, our professor said someone in the class had cheated, and that person was asked to come forward. They risked getting expelled. I sat in the front row closest to the board, as always. I couldn't see the heads turning behind me, but I could feel it. I could feel the eyes looking around each other at the room. You could hear the whispers. You can hear everyone trying to guess who it was that was cheating. I couldn't help but think, poor kid, this must be really rough. Someone's actually going to get kicked out of grad school. Cheating was not tolerated. I had put so much effort into this project, and I was so frustrated to know that someone dared to cut corners and thought they could outsmart the system. A few days later, I was called to the professor's office. I thought it was because I'd received the highest grade on the project, so I expected kudos and congratulations and compliments from a professor who had historically doubted me for no reason. I walked into his office and sat down. He sat up in his chair, clasped his hands together. He cleared his throat and calmly said, "Why have you not stepped forward for cheating?" I was shocked and outraged, but silent. I sat there silently. I didn't know what to say. I received the highest grade in the class on this project because I wanted to. I wanted to be that student that above and beyond, and I wanted to prove my abilities. And now I was being accused after spending over 30 grueling hours trying to solve a complex problem I'd never seen before, and I was being as resourceful and creative as I could. I withheld what I actually wanted to say and respectfully denied the accusations. "You got the highest grade. What were your methods?" he asked me with slight condescension. I could read between the lines. "How did you get your answer? Your grade is hard to believe." The problem was a programming language within a programming language. It was difficult for even the most skilled computer engineer. 12 students stepped forward to admit that they cheated. All of them were men. Again, I was outraged. How is it that one student, me of all people, was the one accused of cheating, but a dozen others stepped forward? How could there be such a lack of oversight on everyone else, but all eyes were on me? I wish I would have spoken to Mona and Chandra. They both were women in STEM. Only they could have empathized with me. This was intellectual terrorism. It was so early on in the semester, and this accusation made me want to hide from everyone. I couldn't look my teacher in the eyes anymore. I knew that from then on, all eyes were on me. If I excelled, they'd think I cheated. And if I failed, they'd assume it was because I didn't cheat that time. I know for sure, for absolute certainty, that if there were more women who looked like me in the program, only then would I have not been put in that situation. Months later, I graduated from my master's program, a semester ahead of everyone else in my class. Another professor had offered me a prestigious fellowship to work for either the CIA or the FBI. I was given the option. I declined the offer because I wanted to start my own healthcare company and become a pediatric autism therapist. I knew that I could make a bigger impact in my community by staying in Tucson than by moving to Virginia. 6 months later, I finished my second master's degree in education. I started both grad programs at the same time, finishing both in 3 semesters. I was now 24, a licensed therapist, and started a healthcare company and a tech company. People lie and cheat in politics all the time. In my home state of Arizona, we will get to vote to legalize recreational marijuana and increase funding for education. The opponents of both have littered the city with dishonesty. Their signs are everywhere, full of lies. The truth of the matter is that Latinos are disproportionately targeted and stopped by police on suspicion of drug possession, yet are statistically the least likely to carry drugs in their vehicles. More than half of the population in our community are Latino, and they're worried every day about getting stopped for no reason because they look like a minority. Given our country's history, we all know that minorities are the most at risk when being stopped for minor traffic violations. The other big ticket item is education. Education has been underfunded for more than a decade in Arizona, and we continue to rank 49th nationally. Financial literacy and financial freedom are 2 topics that are near and dear to me. By being a business owner, I'm able to openly speak out about the injustices I see in our country without fear of losing my job. I can't be fired because I own the place, but not everyone is as lucky. Many live in fear of retribution for speaking out against injustice. This is why I advocate so strongly for people to be entrepreneurs, to start their own businesses, because you can't get fired from what's yours. I vote because it matters, because I've been accused of dishonesty because I didn't fit a stereotype of someone who should excel. And I know that people everywhere are being accused of crimes that they didn't commit. I vote because there are laws on the books that criminalize poverty, that create endless cycles of poverty. I vote because Latinas have to work almost 2 years in order to earn as much as a white man earns in 1 year for doing the exact same work. 2 years compared to 1. I vote because there's over 500 kids today who are locked in cages, and now the US government can't find their parents. I vote because Americans panic at the thought of running out of toilet paper, but judge families who choose to flee from their war-torn countries. I advocate for others to vote so that they stop thinking that their vote doesn't matter, because our votes do matter, so that little girls aren't dissuaded from careers in STEM, and so that they can see people who look like them doing the things that they want to do. I advocate for women and minorities to start their own businesses, to be entrepreneurs, to speak their minds, because silence is complicity, and speaking out against the evils that we see can encourage others to speak out. Our vote is our voice.